New Chinese mid-sized electric SUV majors on space, tech, charging speed, and value. It probably won't surprise you that the creator of the subject of this test, the XPeng G6, is something of a Far Eastern imitator of Tesla. The brand has yet to assume anything like a comparable growth path, but its expansion to European markets, including, very recently, the UK, may well be another key step along the way. XPeng was founded in Guangzhou, China, in 2014 by former senior executives of state-owned GAC. The enthusiasm for advanced automotive technology that those two executives, Zia Heng and He Dao, put at the core of their new enterprise can be read as a reaction against the presumably conservative attitudes of their former employer. XPeng had offices in Silicon Valley, California, within a few short years of its formation, and was closely involved in the development of autonomous cars before its 5th birthday. It is international in its outlook and independently operated. Its shares are traded on the New York and Hong Kong stock exchanges, and it remains committed to distinguishing its electric cars from their peers primarily via their technology. It introduced the G6 in China in June 2023 as an ultra-smart coupe SUV, and it's now available through newly recruited UK distributors International Motors. Based on an all-new model platform, the G6 offers several key selling points relative to rivals grouped around a price point, starting at just under £40,000. These include 800 volts rapid charging and, according to its maker, efficiency, onboard digital technology, and sophisticated advanced driver assistance systems. Design and styling. The G6 looks like a slightly naive mix of the progressive and derivative. Its robot face look is clearly intended to outwardly manifest the technologically avant-garde philosophy within, but just how successfully it manages to do that seems very open to question. The curving roofline and distinctive silhouette are certainly quite bold and ought to better identify the car. And yet, overall, it's hard to see much of anything here, but a mix of design cues appropriated from Tesla and Mercedes-Benz. The G6 looks a little like some strange, aggregated automotive form, designed by AI. The G6's engineering would certainly seem to deserve better. The car sits on XPeng's SEPA 2.0 platform, which is made up of a mixed metal chassis of aluminium and steel, reinforced by a stressed underfloor battery pack. It has an aluminium body, an 800 volts electric architecture, with a silicon carbide power inverter, and what XPeng calls its full scenario XPeng 2.5 driver assistance technology package, which is made up of a network of 29 cameras, radar transceivers, and ultrasonic sensors, whose output is monitored and processed by a special NVIDIA processor. If that sounds like a lot for an electric family SUV priced from under £40,000, it may be because, frankly, it is. The car is available in the UK in single-motor, rear-wheel drive form. Only a twin-motor version is offered elsewhere, and in standard range and long-range models. The latter uses a nickel-manganese cobalt NMC battery with 84 kWh of usable capacity, the former a lithium iron phosphate LFP1 of 65 kWh. Both versions are driven by a permanent magnet-style electric motor with 325 pounds-feet of peak torque. Although in the long-range model, that motor develops marginally more peak power, to 8 bhp, than in the standard range model to 155 bhp that we elected to test. So does the LFP battery and all that aluminium in the construction make this a relatively light EV? A little disappointingly, no? The G6 came in at 2,067 kilograms on the proving ground scales, heavier than the long-range Tesla Model Y we tested in 2022 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5 we tested the year after, both rivals with larger capacity battery packs. Interior. The G6 feels a bit bathtub-like to sit in, the plunging bonnet and body sides hidden from view from the driver's seat behind quite a high beltline and scuttle. This, combined with the effect of that descending roofline at the rear, makes for quite an enveloping ambience, which it builds on to modestly luxurious effect in at least one respect. At 4.75 meters in length, this is quite a big car for the price, almost 200 millimeters longer than a Peugeot E3008, and more than 100 millimeters longer than a Skoda Enyaq. And, more than anywhere, it feels that way in the provision of second-row passenger space. Even taller adults will find room to stretch out in the back seats, which don't seem to suffer from the high floor syndrome that affects so many EVs. They also recline quite a long way. Digital technology aside, though, you wouldn't say the G6's interior feels particularly lavish, though neither is it hard or cheaply kitted out. The perceived quality is a cut above that of MG and on a par with BYD, and it certainly bears comparison with European brands. Up front, there's a slightly anonymous look to the dashboard and primary controls, but that's mostly because there are so few features to look at here, and what is there isn't very originally themed. The use of satin chrome switchgear and decorative trim against the charcoal gray of moldings and cloth puts you in mind of a mid-level Mercedes business saloon, while the layout of a dominant central touchscreen, and so little elsewhere, is clearly from the Tesla playbook. Unlike in a Tesla, the G6 does have an instrument display, but no head-up display, and it does have a column shifter drive selector and an indicator stop. The thumb button consoles on the steering wheel spokes, meanwhile, double up to adjust door mirror positioning and motorized steering column adjustment in a similar way to a Tesla, once the right touchscreen menu is selected. There's quite a bit of cabin storage in the front row, between a deep armrest cubby and the space below the floating center console. However, while the boot is advertised at a voluminous-sounding 571 liters, its outright space is clearly shallower than in some squarer-bodied SUV rivals, and might not be suited to carrying the very bulkiest of load.